Hi guys, it's me Zim. Now here's a question I would like to ask. If you wanted to play The Division, but instead of playing as a random person who was signed up for The Division, you play as a little anime girl? In a way? Well, look no further than Banzai Escape 2 Subterranean. Now, Banzai Escape 2 Subterranean is a third person, over the shoulder shooter that has RPG looter light mechanics. And I'm going to mention this first. The game is actually quite fun. From my perspective, I've played and it's a pretty fun game. It's not only a decent game to play if you have extra time on your hands, but it's also a fun game if you just want to, get a buddy and like play the game together. The reason why I say that is because this game has all sorts of cool mechanics in it. But before I get to that, we're going to mention the devs. The devs, from what I have looked at their previous work, they've worked on only 3 games, Subterranean being their third. Banzai Escape 1 was their first game. The game was basically a third-person cover-based rail shooter. And judging by from the reviews and the overall price tag of $6 was on sale earlier, probably is still, but judging by the recent reviews, the price tag, the game was rather short. You could finish it in around 1, 2, maybe 3 hours. Then they released Banzai Escape 2 a few years later, and that game was a vast improvement from the first game. Instead of it being a third-person cover-based rail shooter, it was now a full-fledged third-person, over-the-shoulder Resident Evil style shooter, and not only that, there were multiple characters you could pick. There was also a blueprint system, collectibles, and a working shop system. Now, the story for both games is rather simple. The first game, you played as a character named as Rokihi. Her objective was to fight through Lonin, which is the pirates, and Spectre forces to get to her objective, which is Dr. Betas. Try and stop Dr. Betas. The second game is the same thing. The only difference is that you get to play as either Rokihi's Captain Benchy, or Rokihi herself, and you get to further understand and learn about the lore of Banzai Escape through the second game. You get to also learn about the sisters. You also learn about the overall objective of the pirates, the Lonin forces, and the Spectre sisters. And the Subterranean is basically the game based off of the sisters in general. And what I mean by sisters is this, in the about page of the game. Banzai Escape 2 Subterranean is a sequel game based on the events after the events of... Screw you, car! Anyway, based on the events of Banzai Escape 2, where the Draugr labs have been captured by Spectre. All the sisters, Inchester, which are the merchants, Imingter, which are the security division, and Aelclair, which, if I'm correct, are either the medics or the commanders, take refuge to a location deep underground. In order to survive, they must defeat the Lonin occupying the underground dungeon that works along with other factions such as Spectre and others. You are an elite Imingter agent with special access to roam around underground networks to dispose any incoming threat. The features are single-player co-op mode, so you can play with a friend, customizable costumes and skins, random generated map segments, randomly generated guns, 56 nano plugin add-on skills, 3 difficulties as of the moment, annoying enemies ? And the system requirements are you need at least Windows 7 or 10, 7 up to 10, an Intel Core i3 or AMD equivalent processor, 8 gigs of RAM, NVIDIA GeForce GTX 1050 or an AMD Radeon RX 460, broadband internet connection, 1 gig of space, and a sound card compatible with Windows. The recommended is just basically you just need some internet connection. That's it. The game can literally run on a toaster if needed. Oh, looking down here, I noticed the games are still on sale. Good to know. So yeah, the game is actually quite interesting, and the best part is the game depending on the game is what price you have to pay. Right now, the first game is on sale for $5 and some change instead of $6. And the second game is not $15, it's $13 and some change. So you can save a little bit of cash from buying either one. Not only to mention, but the price tag differed depending on how long the game was. So you're probably wondering, okay, so those two games have a price tag. One's short, so it's only $6, and one's decently long, so it has a bigger price tag. What's the difference between this and Subterranean? Well, this game is 100% free. And you're probably like, that seems like BS. No, the developers said that the reason why they made the game 100% free, campaign and content as a whole, is because originally people could not afford the second game, which was around $15, which, even though $15 is rather somewhat of a steep price, I can actually understand why they would make the game free because of that reason. And yeah, it's not really a bummer. It's more of due to these games being a passion project, they're more focused on trying to, appease an audience, or like have people play a game instead of having to shell out $60 for something that's somewhat similar, just with a heavy paywall and possible pay-to-win tactics. Which, now that I mentioned that, we're gonna go off based on a review I've made about the game. I may have played only an hour of this game, but judging by what I've played, it's a fun time, so here are my reasons why. And note, I only played an hour, and based off of what I've accumulated over time playing this game, it's about 11 hours, so it's free, so you're not wasting money. True, the game is 100% free, you don't have to worry about paying anything other than DLC, which is just clothing options at the moment. Developer said possible missions too, but those are probably like bonus missions, like super bonuses. They're probably adding like more campaign to the story along with it. Not to mention the cosmetics, they don't give you any benefits either. There's no armor in the game. The only thing that you have to worry about is getting nano units, which we'll discuss later. A decent character customization that, while a bit limited, has a bunch of interesting options. As you will see from the footage, I am rummaging through the character customization, showing off all the clothing options you have, hair options, options for your arms, which technically is like secondary clothing, color options, all sorts of stuff. It's pretty big amount of stuff that you could put on your character, especially considering the fact that most of the DLC stuff is really cheap. The cool coat, which is what I bought, was only $2, and it actually looks really cool and is in the second trailer of the game. If you look on the game store page. No pay to win, meaning everything other than certain cosmetics are earned in-game. Yes, aside from certain cosmetics which you have to pay money for, everything is obtainable. Legendary weapons, rare weapons, legendary modules, rare modules, all sorts of stuff. Everything is obtainable. You don't have to worry about paying money for anything. In-game currency is obtainable. The secondary in-game currency, which is technically your healing item, which is part of the backstory of the other two games, is also obtainable, and you can get some cool stuff with that stuff. 2-player co-op, which adds more fun to the game. I haven't played it as of yet, mainly because I don't have any friends who would be willing to install the game. I mean, you're not really wasting your money, you're just wasting like 1 gig of space and probably a little bit of your time, so nothing bad. But freaking plane outside. Anyway, There's there's 1 to 2 player co-op, and the 2-player co-op, as I've heard, needs a little work, but it's functional, and people say it's a lot of fun. A next pro is a ton of weapons and nano units that add a variety of build customizations. So that's the most intriguing part. There are weapons and nano units, depending on the rarity, have different abilities. So here are the tiers. Tiers go from broken, which means either they have a downside or they don't function properly. Standard, basically just a normal item that you would get, just the base one, no downsides, no upsides. Rare, which has more benefits than the standard version, and legendary, which has double the benefits of the standard version, coupled with probably a bonus, which at the moment it's not really that good of a bonus, but having a legendary weapon is best, especially for endgame. And I think they change depending on how many loops you have, which I'll get into in a second. So for example, a broken weapon would have a downside. So let's say you got an MP5 and the broken stat is that its reload speed is a lot longer, which is not cool, because whenever you're playing a shooter, you want the fastest reload possible so you can get back into the fight. Or let's say you get a shotgun and its damage is reduced, or you get a assault rifle and its magazine capacity is reduced. That's what broken is. For the nano units, it's either broken as in it doesn't give you a lot of benefits, or like benefits so low you might as well not even use it, or it gives you a downside. For example, broken vampire unit, instead of getting health back from hurting enemies, you could potentially hurt yourself. Or if you get the broken pickpocket unit or the broken health unit, you won't get health, or you'll just lose money when you attack an enemy, or lose nanosys, which is the secondary currency. So yeah, those are examples of the broken. Normal's normal, rare has higher benefits, as I mentioned, and legendary is like super rare. It's super rare to get, but it's actually really good. I think the best rare one that you can get for healing if you're a team player is the Holy Spirit, which is basically a grenade mod, which turns your grenade from an actual frag, which by the way you can also change to a turret too. It turns your grenade from a frag to a healing aura, and you can combine the two too. They stack, so you can have a turret with a healing aura. And the healing aura, it lasts for 20 seconds and the radius is 10 meters, which means literally you can cover a lot of ground with it. You don't have to confine in one spot like the other healing modules. The next pro is Pretty Smart AI. They can run from grenades, take cover from incoming fire, rush you if you're not in cover, and throw grenades to flush you out of cover. This is also true. From the gameplay, you'll see that I'll be throwing grenades and the enemies will start running away from the grenades. If I'm in cover, they'll start rushing towards me, so I have to figure out whether to kill them first, prioritize them, or go for the ones that are more annoying. They'll sometimes get in cover, making it hard to actually get a hit on them, and not to mention they also will flush you out with grenades. The Grenadiers, one of the most annoying enemies in the game. The melee enemies aren't annoying because they'll just bop you and knock you on the ground. That's about it. You can just get up and shoot them. They don't have a lot of armor on anyway, unless you're dealing with the shield variant and the ones that carry armor. But they aren't that annoying. Same for some of the enemy pirates that aren't armed really well, but they have SMGs. But the Grenadiers are annoying because they throw 3 types of grenades. Frag, which knocks you down if you get hit and does a high amount of damage. Flashbang, which blinds you for a couple seconds, and also the length also depending on whether you're staring at the grenade or whether the grenade flashes behind you or nearby. And sometimes it doesn't even happen if it goes past you. And they throw Molotovs, which burn you consistently even if you're out of the flames. And they cover a slightly big radius. Not too big, but big enough so you have to move a little bit. And those are annoying because they also obscure your vision. which is kind of annoying in my opinion. Also, little known fact, the enemies can hurt themselves. I've seen this before. A grenadier threw a frag grenade at me, I ran away, an enemy accidentally stepped on it. It blew up, knocking them over, or potentially killing them, and it was hilarious. The next pro is unique waypoint system the dev made from scratch, and it has a tutorial online how to make one. I will link the dev's YouTube channel in the description for you guys to check it out, or I'll pop it up on screen if you want to see. But yeah, they actually have a unique waypoint system. Depending on what a lot of key you have, or what controller you're using, because yes, the game has controller support for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. The waypoint system functions as it does a pinging proc, like an AoE like sonar proc, that marks enemies, allies, and objectives, while also sending out a yellow line that leads towards your objective. And it actually is pretty smart. It goes upstairs, it points in directions that you need to go, and it's overall really accurate. Even though the maps are kind of tiny and they don't randomize as much, it is pretty good. It's a pretty good navigator, and he made it by himself. So the devs made it by themselves, so it's actually quite unique. Next pro is mission looping system that adds modifiers for high risk, high reward scenarios. That's what I wanted to get into. So basically, think of the world tier system from The Division or any looter shooter. The higher the tier, the more difficult the enemies become, but the higher chance you're gonna get some decent loot. Like for example, stock or like standard mode. Like you start off with like standard or broken gear, then you work up to a little bit of rare, then you work up to possibly getting a legendary or just mostly rares. After you beat that, you go to the next loop, and then you'll start getting more standards, possible rares, mostly rares and legendaries, and then legendaries are overall with a little bit of rares. Then it keeps going, getting higher and higher and higher until you've reached the final loop, which is up to 10, which is actually kind of cool that it goes up to 10, meaning there's more replay value, especially since you get a bunch of loot. Another pro is that a bit of mission variety that makes missions, even with the difficulty comes, to add more missions for you to do. For example, there's 3 difficulty modes. Easy, you start off with one of 2 missions: neutralize or disable generators. And neutralize basically kill everything. Disable generators is you have to turn off generators. Now you have to look for now easy mode, you only get one of those missions. Only one. And after you only get one, you just leave. You get your loot and you leave. Medium missions, which is technically more normal, you get 2 missions, and the difficulty kind of spikes because you now get enemies that are rocking SMGs. They don't have a lot of armor. Most of them don't have a lot of armor, but then you'll start seeing grenadiers and stuff and all that. And hard, you get 3 missions, and the enemies start getting tougher. They start rocking LMGs, full kit, so you have to go for headshots, or use piercing weapons that have high damage, such as the revolver or the anti-material sniper rifle. And yeah, and also bosses. You also have to deal with the bosses. Those are one and dones, and the bosses can give you good loot and progress the little mini story that the game has, which it does. It's a small campaign. It's not like, you know, noteworthy because in fact it's a small dev team, but it is a pretty small campaign, and it's keep you invested till the end, and you just gotta go through the loops after that. And then Pro 10, which is the final pro, mixed generator maps that change depending on the difficulty or randomized missions. I've already mentioned the randomized missions and the difficulty, but the mixed generator maps are true. Depending on the difficulty is what map you'll get and how random it is and where your spawn is. So you could be going one way, but then you could go the other, and then like you'll be fighting a subway, then you'll fight into like a hydroponics ward, then you'll fight into like a security room or in a sewer. It's depending on where you're gonna go for the battle and the objective. And here are the cons. Now, I mentioned here in the review Due to this game being early access, most of what is mentioned in the cons will be changed, and I will be also adding some cons into the video that I did not put in the review. So, number 1, the shop placement is too far from Central Command. This needs to be moved. Yes, Central Command is literally, you spawn in Central Command, and you have the inventory store and the mission selection above you, because you're on the ground floor, and then inventory is second floor, and the top floor is the mission selection. Past the clone incubation sector, which you spawn in, which is the ground floor, which is in the lore, that's where you're born from. You're the most elite of the integer, and that's why you're the integer sisters. That's why you wake up in your pod there. But you spawn there. If you run across all the way across the small bridge and then take a left, that's where you'll find the shop. The reason why I say this is way too far away and needs to be moved is because what if you're a new player and they don't know how to get better weapons other than doing missions and they're struggling? It'd be more beneficial if the shop was a lot closer. That's why I believe it should be moved, or it should be somewhere, or there should be like a shop system in the inventory floor. That way you can just buy what you want from the crates that are there in the store and then get loot without having to go there or without having to like move it. So Con 2, Gamepad Controls work fine, but have a tendency of having a mouse appear in game. This is not the gamepad's fault, this is from the actual mouse controls fault from the results screen. Also, the drag and drop options don't work on gamepad. That's an issue, because you're supposed to drag and drop stuff to sell things in order to get currency. Now, another problem with that is drag and drop can get annoying, so I would recommend for the devs to have a select all or select option. Like select the ones you want to sell, then drag and drop, or select the ones you sell and then press a button. That way it's a lot easier for people to manage their inventory without having to constantly drag and drop, especially if you're a person who doesn't have a big mouse pad, unlike me, whose table is an entire mouse pad. And also, this is probably, I thought this was an issue with Xbox and PlayStation controllers, which I didn't know about, but no, it was just a general issue with the mouse. The mouse appearing on screen was an issue with the result screen in general. The drag and drop options for the PlayStation, I don't know. Xbox, I do know that's an issue. Third con, no option to cancel your reload, so you can't use melee, roll, throw grenades, or swap weapons. That's one thing that that's one thing that made me love The Division or any other shooter I've played, was the option to cancel your reload. Because you could be fighting somebody and then you could be mid-reload, and then you just swap over to your DMR, shotgun, or whatever other secondary weapon you have, and then when you run out of that, you can swap it to your pistol, and then if all push comes to shove, you can start meleeing or pop a shield so you can like have a chance to reload or find cover. That's why reload canceling is important in shooters. This game doesn't have it yet, but it needs it, because what if you get into a picky situation where you have to reload your weapon, someone's getting too close, you want to scare them off by throwing a grenade, meleeing, or swapping to the other weapon and shooting them instead. You can't roll when you're reloading either, so as I mentioned before, so you literally you have to run and hide. You can crouch, but you have to run and hide in order to actually get the full reload. The reloads are relatively short for certain weapons, but if you've got a weapon that has a long reload like an LMG or a sniper, it's going to be a minute. 4. Content at the moment is a bit short. If you have time, you finish the game in a day or more. Yes, the main campaign on standard mode is really short. I believe you can get through it, unlike Banzai Escape 2, the original. Banzai Escape 2, the campaign was around 4 to 8 hours long, depending on what you did in the game, and that's including all the collectibles, all the weapon blueprints, and finishing all the objectives for side quests and stuff. That's depending. So that game is a lot longer. This game is about half that. I believe you'll finish it in 4 hours, maybe less. The main campaign. It's still decently long for a free-to-play game, but it's still short, and you probably will get bored of it if you keep repeating the same thing over and over again. That's why the devs right now are hard at work trying to bring out patches and possible updates and stuff like that. Fifth con is no option to fully pause the game if playing on single player. This is an issue and needs to be added because some people don't have a friend, some people want to play alone. You have to take in that into consideration because they could probably need to go do something and they can't pause the game. They can find a hiding spot, but they can't pause the game. Con 6. Melee is too clunky to use due to you having to stand still to even hit. By that time, an enemy will hit you back and knock you down. This is if you have the max impact mod. I do, so I don't have to worry about it, but before that, if you melee, you have to sit still, and you do a crane kick. And the crane kick, while the range is short, it can kill certain enemies, and it can knock enemies down to get you some free hits in. But the problem is that, oh, and it also stun bosses, but the problem is that you have to sit still. And if you sit still, you're going to get shot at, blown up, or worst, get hit yourself. So you get knocked out of the animation, so you don't end up even proccing the kick, knocking you on the floor, and leaving you to get shot and possibly get downed. Which also, another thing is, you can get downed in the game, single player or two player. And you can self-revive using Nanosys, but Nanosys costs 4 for a self-revive, 1 for a heal. And that's also the high risk, high reward thing about Nanosys. It's not only a currency, but it's also your healing item because of the lore in the previous game. So, yeah, if you don't know, so you have to be careful with what you have to use depending on how much Nanosys you have. As I mentioned down here before, this game is rather fun, and I do hope it gets more content down the line. I recommend it, but that's up to the person reading this to decide and for the dev to consider. So there may be some changes down the line. Now, I edited the review and I said this. As of writing this, I've been doing more in-game research and I've added more pros to the list along with some minor cons. Before there was only like 5 pros, 5 cons, and I was trying to do the review quick because I was at a birthday party. I'd also like to mention the game is being made by only a dev team of 5. Yes, a dev team of 5. What I mentioned and the footage you're seeing right now was only made by a dev team of 5. And the worst part is the developer actually contacted me from this review and said that the dev team may be only up to 5, but only 1 to 2 people were working on it, himself and another person. So technically, if you consider it, it was only 2 people working, so that means they're working their butt off to release this game and to post updates and new content. Also, not to mention, it's a passion project. And I mentioned this before, it being a passion project, but it's a passion project. So that means the developers just made this game just for fun, just for see if people were to like it and see how far it can go and see if they want to continue their passion for making games at the moment. Because I can understand something can be a passion project. I write, that's a passion project to me because I like writing stories and I like using my imagination and stuff. So having to make a game as a passion project is kind of hard, especially if you don't have a publisher or if you're just doing it on your own. Then again, there's a lot of people who manage to do it on their own. Develop the dude who made Undertale and Deltarune and a few others, but still, it's a passion project and it's an early access, so you can't really be that upset about the bugs and issues that the game has. And to add insult to injury, the developer and the team are from Malaysia, so they don't have a lot to go off of, and English is not their first language, so they're gonna have difficulties trying to, what I'm trying to say is they'll possibly need help and they need all the support they can get to keep the game going and actually have people enjoy and have fun. And they want the game to improve, so they could use whatever help. They asked for help in their previous game, Banzai Escape 2. People voice act for it, and it's, in my opinion, that's a good thing a developer would do. They would ask for help if needed. Now, some other things that I didn't mention is that there's some other issues that the game has that I'm going to mention right now. is that there were some bug fixes recently released. So patch 1 fixed enemy ignoring the player after restarting. So basically, if both players are dead, the enemies would have had an issue of ignoring player 2. So you had to do everything on your own, while the second player was just wondering like, what the frick's going on? Why is like nobody paying attention to me? Now they could still fight, but the problem is that the first player is going to get focused on the most, and depending on who you got on your team, they could do whatever, and it could be a problem. Integer issues, change combo to data for numeric. This is for a certain thing that happened. I'm not going into details, but it was basically a problem when you were playing with another person. Steam overlay hide mouse. So yeah, they fixed the issue where the mouse would disappear if you open the Steam overlay in the pause menu. They fixed the colliders for the PC console. So yeah, so it won't, the collider issue won't pop up often. Reduced jammer and fire screen effect opacity. There was a issue released when the game first released, that the jammer, which is another mission where you had to destroy jammers, and the fire opacity for the Molotov cocktails from the grenadiers and the bosses, would cause your screen to be cluttered and you won't be able to see what you're doing. Flashbangs are one thing, but getting flashed, then Molotov, then jammed at the same time just makes it difficult to see anything. Makes you permanently can't see anything. So he reduced the opacity of both, and that should help with people having issues trying to see in game. Reconfigure the loot box area so that the player, I don't know if they meant for the player to not exploit it or they can exploit it. It's like this free-to-play game and they're not trying to regulate people's fun. But they reconfigured the box so that I think they have an easier time trying to get weapons. Exiting the game saves the game now, so you don't lose progress. They fixed the issue with the confirmation button for the level select being disabled for some reason. Changed the icon for the main story to a book, which is not really nothing, but it'll let you know the backstory of Banzai escaped Subterranean. The X buttons were disabled in the story page so you couldn't leave. Major issue they fixed. They fixed the issue where if someone were to remove a player from their second player game and they went to single, and that player invited someone to single player, they would still be able to join, which is a big bug that could mess with the multiplayer. They added an advertiser too for their games, for the other games. They also have some issues they're still working on, like a lost collider, no hit or interaction after a while of play with a buddy, which they're trying to fix. The second patch they've released in the span of 2 days, which is actually kind of impressive. Fixed the easy route missions from Save Sister mission to not repeat 4 times. The easy route will now only have 2 types of missions, and that will be neutralize hostiles and save sisters, and it also included before assist sisters, but they changed it now so that it will only have those 2 missions, and it won't repeat save sisters 4 times in a row every time you do an easy route. So they fixed that issue. They fixed the cursor appearing in the scoring window, so now now you close the scoring window, the cursor won't appear. Modified Juno's health. They reduced his health from 300 to 200, but that's the first time boss only. That's the first time you fight him in standard mode, not in loot mode. Remove broken weapon loot box. It's kind of serve no purpose, yeah, because you can just get broken weapons from standard mode, and not only that, they not only suck, but they cost less money when you sell them, so there was really no point. The only reason why you would get broken weapons is from standard mode and to sell them for extra cash, just in case you want to buy something. Added toggleable options for aiming, sprinting, crouching and add to the settings. Previously, you were unable. You can only change the button for crouching. Now they made it so that the buttons are now toggleable. You have a toggleable option, so you can toggle the aim, toggle your sprint, and toggle your crouch. They still have a few issues to solve. The lost collider, no hit, no interaction after a while of play. Exit the main menu or re-enter the game was a temporary solution to that issue. So yeah, they are working on bug fixes. The game is free, early access, made in Malaysia, and only a team of 5, which only 2 people are working on it at the moment. And let's not forget to mention that the game has gamepad support. It's 2-player co-op, and it has a lot of replay value if you're willing to play the game as much as you want. I will have to say a few other cons that kind of bothered me in the game was the fact that there's a slight glitch when buying weapons and nano augments. Whenever you open the crate, one of the nano augments to go flying in the air. That's simple to counteract. Just go find it where it went flying and pick it up. But the problem is that the second one, or like depending on which one goes first, the second one will get stuck inside the box, meaning that you can't get that nano augment, and there's no way to obtain it. So that needs to be fixed. There's also an issue with the bosses. Now, the bosses on alone, like their standalone boss, like you have Juno and Jenna. The individual bosses, because the final boss is the duo, but Juno is really easy. As you see from the footage, all you really need to do is get behind him and shoot him in the back, and if you shoot him enough, he'll get stunned, prompting you to shoot him in the back some more. But for Jenna has like high defense, and there's 3 types of damage numbers. Red meaning critical or like high damage because they're not wearing armor if you aim for the head. Blue meaning you're hitting their armor but you're doing damage regardless. And yellow meaning your damage is severely reduced. You're still doing damage but it's severely reduced. And Jenna has that ability to have severely reduced damage. And she's the hardest because she tends to charge and chase after you. So if you were fighting Jenna for the first time on standard mode, I recommend running around the map and making sure that you get her in a chokehold. Then repeat the process. You may get downed and you may have to revive, but repeat the process until she's dead. Then clear out all the enemies and then leave. And yes, the bosses have ads, so be careful. Make sure you have a decent setup. I recommend a healing aura and turret setup to distract enemies. And since the turrets explode, they also do damage and knock enemies down, so that's a big plus too. But the hardest part is the duo, Jenna and Juno. And Juno's armed with a grenade launcher that knocks you around if you don't have the highest level impact mod. And he spams it, I think, 3 times and then he reloads. Not to mention that even though he can hit his allies, the blast radius is pretty big, so you're gonna have to roll out the way or spam the movement keys to get out of there. Jenna, on the other hand, he's still easy to fight. You just need to shoot him in the back and he'll die. He'll also die from flame grenades Jenna would throw. But Jenna, on the other hand, is a pain in the butt to deal with for 2 reasons. One, she is relatively fast. Juno is slow because he's wearing heavy armor that makes him impenetrable from the front. But Jenna is extremely fast. Not to mention she's armed with a flamethrower that does fire damage, and she constantly shoots it and throws Molotovs at random. Not to mention she also has that reduced damage and increased health due to the fact that this is their final phase, the duo phase, and she can sometimes regenerate health. So for the devs, what I recommend is being a little more clear and finding out a way to make it so that you can actually defeat Jenna easily for new players. or for people who are going through loops, or you could potentially reduce Jenna's health during her duo phase, or just don't give her health regen, considering the fact that we have to deal with the fact that she regens if you don't attack her enough. Also, when she is constantly chasing you with the flamethrower, it's kind of hard to deal with that when you got also grenadiers and melee guys charging you. So it's best to fix that for the benefit of new players and veteran players so they don't get annoyed later on down the line. And aside from those issues that I have, that's technically about it. There's nothing else to say. Aside from those cons I mentioned, and also some bonus cons that I also mentioned, the game's a pretty decent game, I'm not gonna lie. It's a vast improvement from the original Banzai Escape 2, considering the fact that the second game had some issues, AI issues. They also had issues with trying to find objectives and having to loop around the map constantly. They also had issues of trying to figure out how the combat would work. The combat felt floaty and the controls felt really stiff at times, so I've heard. So yeah, and not only that, the grind was pretty unnecessary, considering the fact that there was a heavy grind in the game. So it was recommended for the player to constantly grind to get some better weapons and upgrade them, which I hope they do add the upgrade system back again. That way they could counteract having to fight Jenna in her duo phase, so that'll make it easier. But aside from that, I hope you guys enjoyed this review. This is my first ever review I've ever made, and I'll see you guys next time. See you guys in my next video. Oh, before I go, if you guys liked the video, give it a like. Comment down below if you want more of this type of content. And if you want to see this content permanently from now on being thrown out from my channel, subscribe and hit the notification bell. It's free. You can always change your mind later, and it's greatly appreciated.